You might remember Mordheim from being the greatest game ever. It truly is an awesome game. The rules are fantastic. The creator, Mr. Piernan, I'm a huge fan, so shout out to you. These are some of my figures from the Warband. I never finished them, and obviously this is a proxy, but I'm going to be painting those today, so sit back and enjoy. I have a lot of my paints assembled here, and so I'll just be randomly using some paints. I'm going to use purple on the robes. This particular one is Demonette Hide. Also use a wet palette. Can't recommend those enough. As you can see, I have some old GW brushes. I've had these for years. You got the reds and the purples, but if you take care of them, they last a long time, so I use these to base coat stuff. So I get the Demonette Hide on the robe, and then I put Bugman's Glow for the face. And I'll definitely do some highlighting and things like that, but I'm going to start with this. And with this, you don't have to be super clean, just kind of bang it around, because we'll go back and clean up afterwards and get rid of some of the slop that we got in different spots. But do have clean brush strokes. Make sure that you keep your brush strokes nice and clean as far as watered down. Shout out to you, Duncan. You know what I'm talking about. Anyone else think it's awesome that Duncan started his own academy? I sure do. As far as his painting site is pretty awesome. I'm glad he's painting some other things besides GW stuff. Now it's kind of fun to see him branch out and use other tools and stuff, even though in my opinion GW has mostly the best models and best tools out there. But it's nice to see him branch out and do some other things. So now I have all the purple on there, and now I'm going to get the red on there. And as you go further here, you do want to get cleaner and cleaner with it, and make sure that you're getting within the lines. I'm using corn red for this, because as you can see, the purple and the red has a pretty stark contrast with each other. Alright, so I painted the boots red. I don't know that I like that, so I'm going to change them to brown or black. Now I'm just going in and cleaning up a few spots that I bumped. Usually you want to wait a minute or two before you do that, because if you do it right away, you'll actually mix the two colors, and purple and red isn't what I'm going for. The contrast is pretty good. Yep, so those are coming along. So now that I got the basic colors on there, the next thing to do with this stuff is actually to tie it all together with basing. I do that because if I get sidetracked and don't actually get stuff finished sometimes, at least the basing ties it all together, but it has basic colors on everything. So I'm going to do all the basing now. So the first color I put in fully is Rhinox Hide, and I went over the whole base. And now I go back with a lighter color. This is Mordheim Brown. my puppy playing around with her Kong. She thinks she's going to get another treat, which she's not, because it's too late for that. Go lay down, honey. Go lay down. So then after I get the first couple colors on there, it starts to get a nice brown on the base. After I get the next couple highlights on here, here's what it'll end up looking like. Right there. And I do this brown color in about 90% of my armies because then it blends in with pretty much any terrain and other things that you're doing. So now I'm going to go with Zamizi Desert. That's the next one. And again, each time you go up in a color, you just go a little lighter. The other one that works good for this is Averland Sunset. I got that around here somewhere, but any of these yellowy type colors will work for this. And I always take and put it on my wet palette first, and then dry brush it off, because that way you're not wasting so much paint going right to the towel. And especially because now it's harder to get paint. So definitely don't waste any that you don't have to. And then the next color here is we're going to go with Morghast Bone. And then this one you just put just a little bit on. But you can see how batch painting works. It goes, I definitely recommend batch painting 10 to 15 models. With all the different skirmish games and stuff that are out now, you can literally paint a whole warband in an afternoon, and you're better off doing it that way because the colors you usually want them to be pretty consistent, and you waste, like I said, you waste a lot less paint, especially with nowadays having a hard time getting paint. So I definitely recommend batch painting. I also recommend the painting handles from Games Workshop. They're pretty awesome. I have a few of them, and if you can pick yourself up some of those, I would definitely recommend it. I wasn't too sure on this mechanism when these first came out, but after messing with these and using these, I definitely recommend these. Unfortunately, I only have like 3 of them, so when I'm batch painting a whole group of stuff rather than just a character, I don't typically use them because I'm going through the models and handling them so quickly. But the other thing I really dig is you can twist these off, and this you can actually use on the spray handle thing that they put out, and then you can switch out the larger to the smaller handles if you'd like to. So that's definitely a cool feature. I haven't bought any of the special red ones yet, but I'm going to pick up a few more as soon as this shelter at home thing is over. And then last but not least, to add a little stone color, just kind of a variation on the base, I take Mechanicus Standard Gray. That's like maybe a little bit too much. Put some back in the jar. In this, you're not going to paint over the whole base. You're just going to pick a couple spots here and there to represent, like I said, just a little variation. So just hit a couple spots. You can do the rule of 3. That's always good. 3 always makes things look better. So just pick a couple corners, hit one in the back, and hit a couple in the back, and one in front. And you don't really have to be too choosy about where this goes, because even if you get it on the feet a little bit, it makes it look like, you know, they've been out in the field or whatever. And again, I'm using one of my larger brushes I picked up at Michael's. These are like $3. They're great for base work because you're just going to trash them. They're not going to be for fine detail or anything like that. So that's the end of that. Then what I do is get rid of that color a little bit. And always drag your brush to the side. Don't mash it straight up and down. So if you mash it straight up and down, it makes the bristles fray more. But just put a little bit of water on it, drag some of that color out of there. Then I take it like this and pat it to get rid of any of the extra moisture in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Mordheim Brown. I'm going to paint the rims of the bases. And this is going to need a couple coats to cover it completely, but once you got this on there, it actually ties the army together fairly well. Oh, and definitely set them somewhere where they're not, you don't mind if there's a ring on it, because it'll transfer a ring to wherever you set it, because you're banging it on there and you're getting brown on the bottom. So you just kind of set them on top of the paints you got sitting on the table. Let it dry a little bit. If you look real close, you can see I've had models in the corner here too. And if you notice when I'm doing this, I dip my brushes right in the paint jar and I leave the jar open. People talk a lot about contaminating the jars and things like that. That only usually happens if you stick your paint brush all the way in, like just jam it all the way into the bottom, then you can contaminate the paint. But if you just go straight up and pull it right back out and just grab some paint without hitting it at the bottom of the jar, you won't contaminate it. But if you drag it around or if you hit the bottom, that's when you'll contaminate it with other colors. And this color scheme for the base I actually did pick up from White Dwarf magazine right after Mordheim had came out, and they were talking about how to do the gravel and how to do the dirt and all that stuff on their bases and all the different terrain. That's actually where I got this color scheme from, and I've used it ever since. Like I said, it blends in with most terrain pieces that I do. I actually do them in the same kind of color, because even if you throw it on other mats, it tends to blend in fairly well. And just about all the different mat styles that I have. So got the first coat done, and just make another pass. Okay, so that's all the base work. Now I'm going to go in and start doing some of the details on the different models. Here's where you're going to start to see this stuff come to life. So I'm going to do like the flames. So that, I'll just hit that with some of the bloodletter glaze. You can be pretty liberal with this, just don't wash so much that it starts to run down the model. So a lot of times when I do washes, I actually turn it upside down so it doesn't run down towards the base. It's not the base is done. I don't want it on there. But if it's up above, you can actually just touch it up. So give it a minute to dry, blow on it a little bit. So just a little bit of flame color. Once that dries, I'll dry brush it a little bit to just bring some of the yellow back out. And some of these guys have metallic on it, and I don't typically do the metallics till I get towards the end of painting, because the more you handle a model, you'll drag those metallics around, and I don't like to do that. So I'm going to go in and block out the black in different spots and put on some of the bone color in different spots. When you do bone, if you've been using your water and you have red and brown and other icky colors in there, you're going to want to get a different water, because you don't want them. That'll definitely mute bone. Most of the other colors it'll just blend in, but bone, it will definitely mute it. So I'm going to get a different water, and this one is specifically for metallics, so I keep that separate as well. So I have a new pot, and these I get from, you can pick these up at your hobby store, but what I typically do is when I go out to eat at different Mexican restaurants and different places that have little cups, is I'll just take those home with me when I'm done with them. Sometimes I grab a couple extra just in case. Then I save them and use them up. You can wash them, but typically if they get all gucked up, I just toss them and start with a new one. Once you get this far too, goggles, these visors definitely save you from straining your eyes. I would recommend getting those. They have some of these with a light, but I have really good light in this room. I have 400 watts basically above me because this is the gaming table too, so I don't need a light on my head as well. But if you have a harder time seeing, definitely light will make a difference. And I have natural sunlight bulbs, so you can actually see what it looks like in the sunlight, and I recommend those versus regular bulbs. Again, shout out to Duncan. You know what I'm talking about. We're not going to slap this all on in one coat. It's going to take, what does he say? Something like 2 thin coats. He's got a little skull on the head of his dagger there, so I'll paint that in skull. Some of them I'll do in brass or bronze. They don't all have to be the same. And it's actually kind of cool if you just mix and match a little bit. Gives your warband a little more flavor. Because it's tied together by the base now, and it'll also be tied together by the main colors, which are purple and red. And some people paint like one complete part of the model and then start slapping on washes. I wait until I get all of the base colors on everything, and then I start going through and doing the washes, because it'll start to bring the thing to life pretty quick then. And once you get that far, if you end up getting that wash on something else, it doesn't typically matter as much. But right now, if I started washing this down with different colors and started running on other things, it would kind of start to mute things and blend things together the way I don't want it to. This guy must have went to Sparta. He's got 3 skulls hanging on his belt here. This is Sparta. And you do want to be careful here not to slop this around. You want to keep it pretty clean, because otherwise you just end up having to go back and block other things out. The things around it are black, which is the color I want them to be, and purple and things like that. So if you stay within the lines, even though I'm going rather quickly, but you stay within the lines, you have less touch up to do. And every now and then just rinse out your brush, get all the paint out, and start over so the tip on it doesn't start to dry out on you. This mutant has a skull in his hand, so I'm going to paint that too. Some unlucky soul was taken down by this mutant. Every now and then just put a little water on your brush, especially if things start to look like you can see the lines in the brush strokes. That's when you know your brush is drying out, and you don't want that. And again, get rid of all the paint in your brush, drag it sideways, don't smash it straight up and down. When I'm all done, I'll clean this stuff up with the jar of brush cleaner that I have. People do different things with their brushes. I have cups and things I store them in sometimes, but I do that when they're completely dry. When I'm using them, I leave them lay flat on the table. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to block out all the black on the different spots. So they have like chainmail kind of things hanging off of their belt. I'm going to go in and block those off black. They have like KS Star. I'm going to block that off in black. And then once I get all that blocked off in black, then I can go in and start doing all of the washes on everything else. And then I'll come back and do the metallics last. You'll be seeing these guys in battle very soon. Heidi and I have a 3-game matchup coming up in the next few days. And then I'll be uploading those videos over the next week. We're going to do a mini campaign. So I do have metal and stuff to still paint on these guys and do some washes, but these are good enough for the table for right now. And I'll be touching them up in between games, hopefully, if I have time. Otherwise, I will keep working on them afterwards. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe, be part of the Horde. Thanks for hanging out, folks.